Hey guys, come along with me today. We are doing a full case of lifting threads. So this patient has main concerns of nasolabial fold heaviness, and she just wants a little bit more of a snatch jawline. So what I like to do first is kind of use my finger. You could use 1 to 2 fingers. I tell everyone that is what is a realistic lift that you're going to get from lifting threads. Anything more than that, you need to refer your patient out for different modalities, or even it might be the time for them to get a facelift. Obviously, this patient doesn't need a facelift. She's going to get a nice lift with a couple threads. She still has great tissue. She doesn't have a lot of lax tissue in general. So we're just trying to maintain the natural aging process. So I used 1 to 2 fingers kind of lifted from that 3 vector point up on that orbital rim, just to kind of see where I'd like to go. Once you have all of your areas marked out, you're headed towards the nasolabial fold, the mental sulcus, the jowl heaviness, and we always do one on the jawline as well. You're going to go in with some lidocaine with epi. I just like to go superficial and deep with that lidocaine and epi so my patient's really comfortable. And then I give them a few seconds and I go in with that pilot needle. So you just saw me do that. I kind of do a little bit of a windshield wiper effect with this just to get a nice open pilot hole so then my cannula is not struggling on the way in. Here I am with my cannula now after I gave that patient a couple seconds just to numb with that lido with epi. I'm going in with a cannula and lidocaine 2% or 1% plain. So as you can see, that pilot hole really opened up the track for the cannula. You can also see that this patient has good collagen pockets. You're pushing through the retaining ligaments in the face, and just those pockets of collagen. So you want to really utilize the whole length of that cannula, really focus on where you're going with those threads and place a little bit of lidocaine. There shouldn't be more than 0.5 of lidocaine in each of those tracks because you don't want to fill the tissue up with too much liquid or fluid that you're not going to get traction on that thread. So you want to numb those 3 vectors, and then from there it is okay to start placing those threads. So I typically go towards the nasolabial fold first. As you can see, I am parallel with the patient's face. I'm inching in little by little, and I'm tapping the end of the cannula to kind of see where I'm going. I always stop before the nasolabial fold just because when you go through the nasolabial fold, sometimes you have a little bit of issue. When your patient is smiling and animating, that thread can want to push through the tissue and create more problems and puckering. So I stop right before. I still get a nice adequate lift. When you're ready to pull out that thread, you have to make sure your thumb is not on the thread on that cannula, and then also too that you're applying a little bit of pressure swooping back in a clean motion. So as you can see, I am utilizing my cannula. I did put a 3 ml syringe back on that cannula, locking in that thread so I could go back. I did not like my depth in this area. It is a tricky area just because you're coming off of that cheekbone into soft tissue. So sometimes that cannula likes to ride a little bit more superficial. So a little tip and trick is that you can use a 3 ml syringe on there just to lock in that thread in order to pull back a little bit and maintain the perfect depth. So once I had that, I went along and made sure that I took off that syringe just so that thread would engage into the tissue. It's a great trick, but if you do not take the syringe off of the cannula, you will in fact disengage that whole entire thread and have to replace it. So just keep that in mind. Last thread here in the 3 vector in the mid face is going to be that jowl. I palpated where that antagonal notch was just to make sure that I was either in front of it or behind it. 9 times out of 10, you're going to be in front of it just because that's where that true jowl weight holds. But you don't want to be pointing that cannula directly towards that antagonal notch. Now that I have those 3 vectors in, I'm lifting, I'm pulling them taut, and then I am clipping them down. As you can see, I'm just applying a little bit of pressure of where I put those threads, hoping that I'm getting those threads to engage, click in the tissue, and then any puckering that you have will settle with time. You just have to be patient with those threads engaging into the tissue. So I'm always pulling up. Sometimes if I do have a pucker, I am using counter pressure, 1 up, 1 down, and you can feel those threads engage into the tissue. So then I'm just putting a Band-Aid over the pilot hole. And then I'm moving to the lower face. So once again, we're starting with that jawline This is lidocaine with epi. As you can see, I'm going a little bit more superficial and then a little deeper just to get full coverage where I'm putting that pilot needle. And then I'm going in with that pilot needle. This is an 18 gauge needle here. It's a very large needle, but that's kind of what you need in order to create a pathway for the cannula. So once I did that little windshield wiper movement, I'm going in with my cannula with lidocaine. This is just, again, 2% or 1% lidocaine plain. And I'm going in parallel with the tissue again. Make sure that you try to be mindful of what your cannula is touching. You do not want it to touch your patient's hairline or your finger too much before it goes into the tissue, just because it is sterile. We want to maintain that sterility as we're going through. Obviously, this procedure overall is a clean procedure, but just making sure that you're really being mindful of any type of infection risk here. So as you can see, I numbed that track, cleaned it up, and now I'm going in with that thread. You are right over the mandible here, so you want to be able to see the outline of your thread, but you don't want to be too deep that you have a whole thick layer of tissue over that cannula. Maintaining the depth is very important because you want to be in the same plane of depth the whole time you're placing those threads. If you are in the same plane the whole time, you're less likely to get that puckering. Also too, you don't want to be too superficial because you never want to be able to see that thread. And as you can see, I'm pulling that both ways. I'm pulling it back and forward to really make sure that I'm choking up the tension on that thread, cleaning with alcohol again, and then placing a Band-Aid. After I'm done with the procedure, I like to place some arnica over the area that I treated. So I massaged the area already, applied pressure to make sure those threads engage the way I like them to. Thread post-care takes up to 4 weeks. Bruising and swelling are the biggest complications of the procedure. So just making sure I'm getting ahead of that with that arnica gel. Afterwards, we sat the patient up so she can see a side by side, and you can see the difference from each side. Her left side that we just did is very swollen, but very much lifted.